Okay. Hello. Welcome to the Indigenous Creators and Popular Culture videocast, which is part of the SoulCon Summer Series. This videocast features Sonya Ballantyne, Rhael McGregor, and Maria the Wolf, and it will be moderated by me, Morgan Podraza. In the first part of this videocast, we'll hear from Sonya, Rhael, and Maria as they discuss their work as artists, and then the second part of this videocast will be a conversation. So let's go ahead and get started.
Hi. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Sonya Ballantyne. I am a Swampy Cree filmmaker from northern Manitoba, and the majority of my work focuses on Indigenous women and girls in non-traditional film genres, such as fantasy, superhero films, and sci-fi. I also do short documentaries about various Indigenous issues. As you can see on the screen, my first short documentary was a doc called Gnosticism, which was about a drawing done of my grandmother and what I learned of her history from that drawing. And the poster on the right, well, my right, I guess that would be your left, I can't tell. But the cool looking poster right there is from my short film, my very first one, Crash Site, which is about these two Indigenous sisters who reconcile after the death of their parents with the help of a superhero. So it's pretty, I'm really excited by how it came out like a few years back, and it still has legs and people still come up to talk to me about it, and it's been in like academic circles. So it's like, it's really cool that this little film went so far. But yeah, next slide. The still on the from Eagle Girl is my most recent film, which had its premiere at last year's Vancouver International Film Festival. It's about a girl with the power to heal, but it doesn't work all the time, whose grandmother is dying. So her and her sister go out to conduct a prayer tie ceremony, but the girl ends up attracting a shapeshifter who is really an eagle most of the time. And the really cute drawing right there is from my children's book, Carrie Berry Lynn, which is about this 4-year-old little girl and her 7 res dogs that are all gifts from her chapan, her great grandmother. And it's a cute little story I was inspired to write by my little sister, Carrie, who, when we were kids, did not have 7 dogs. She had 14. And our real life chapan, who had 50 dogs. But this was before I was born, so I never got to meet all of them. When I knew her, she had about 20.
That's amazing.
Yeah, next slide, please. These are 2 concept art images from the feature film I'm currently working on, which is tentatively titled WW She. It's a tentative title because I think WWE might sue me for that title. So it's a feature film in the style of Mighty Ducks and Cool Runnings, and it's about these 2 this young girl named Rhael who starts an Indigenous It's a feature film about a group of teenage girls on a res who start a pro wrestling promotion after their school burns down, and the girl on the animated one is the lead character, Rhael, as I picture her, and the real life image there is the character I based the villainous lead, Siobhan, as she's a local professional wrestler named Ella. And yeah, like when I saw her, I'm like, that's how Siobhan looks in my mind. So I'm really excited for it. We developed the script already, and we're just in the process of editing it for production. And I'm all like, I got into filmmaking because I didn't like how people wanted to change what I wrote, but I'm primarily a writer. And so I've written for a few anthologies, the most recent one being for Women Love Wrestling. I wrote a short anthology about the time I met this pro wrestler when I was a little girl, who taught me that I could be Bret Hart if I wanted. And the reason why it was such a big deal was because this wrestler that nobody knew at the time grew up to be WWE's Edge. So I met him when I was super young, and he scared the crap out of me because I had very few encounters with white men because I grew up on a reserve. And this guy was like 700 feet tall, and he had like the scariest eyes, and I was like, oh my god, he's a monster. So it was a really cute story about why I both love and hate pro wrestling. So I and all the proceeds go towards women's charities in the US and the UK. So if you wanted to pick it up, please do. And I also wrote a short anthology piece for Pros and Comic Cons, and it was about the first time I attended a comic book convention and the first time I spoke at a San Diego Comic Con panel. So yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell. I feel like I just read my bio.
Well, thank you so much, Sonya. It's great to see you working across so many different like genres and media. It's super cool. All right.
All right. Hi, I'm Rhael McGregor. I am an indie comics creator as well as an animator from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I primarily focus on short comics that are LGBT and romance-based, because that's all I read growing up as a kid. But I also really like writing comics about my experience being LGBT, Two-Spirit, as well as more recently, as I've started being more confident in my identity, about being Métis. And so that's a whole other new thing that I've been going into. But here I have on the left is just an example of some of my traditional work. I like using pencil crayons. I have a comic on the right. It's a panel from part of my comic, Tinder, which is about a witch that falls for a witch in her class, but she's having a really hard time hiding it because every time she sees her, her hair sets on fire. So I just like, silly little kind of romance short comics like this. So next panel. Another one of my stories is called Counting Sheep, and it's basically about in the world of Counting Sheep, soulmates are real, and you can meet them in your dreams, but you can only see them in your dreams until you're 25. And once you turn 25, it's over. So it's about the main character, and she's trying to find her soulmate before time runs out, but she has a very hard time sleeping. So it's kind of a race against time sort of thing. And my most recent work on the right is called Earth Angel. I've been doing these short comics every year for Pride Month, and it's about this guardian angel that ends up basically falling for a human. Classic sort of story, but this time it's gay, so it's different. Yeah, and there's a little twist, and it's fun. So yeah. And here's a short example of one of my works from a small kind of collection I made called Small Big Gay, because I'm small but I'm big gay. So and it's just about my experience wanting to cut my hair when I was a baby gay, and then the girl I liked said don't cut it, and so I didn't for 2 years. But I forgot to include it, but I recently did some work with the CBC about the experience of when you get the question as a mixed Indigenous person, you know, how Indigenous are you, and what percentage are you, and basically the politics around that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rhael.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yee. Well, my name is Maria Lopez. I also go by the name Wolf, so that's my nickname. I am a comic book artist, a professional comic book artist, and also a freelance illustrator too. And that's pretty much it. If you could see here on the left, I worked on a short story called Dear Woman. So it was about the missing Indigenous woman pretty much around the world. And my short story was involved with a lot of detail, a lot of brutalness in it too. I was happy how it came out too. And I would say that's my first published book that was different from what I was already working on personally. So that I was really happy with too. And, you know, when I went to Indigenous Con too, that was my first book too, that I was able to actually say that I worked on something. So I'm happy with that one, how that one came out. On my right side, it's here in Chicago, there's a place called Pilsen. It's really big on a lot of, it's a big Latino community too. And with tons of artists from around the world, especially Latin artists around too. And we actually have the biggest Mexican art too museum as well. So I just did a history of it, and that was pretty quick too. That was fun. It was fun to do. That's it. Here's another comic I did too. This one is called The Lost Pages. This is my recent work. I'm still finishing some artwork for it as well too. It's pretty much a bunch of superheroes and anti-heroes too, from different, how do I say, different genres, different artists. I'm like one of 20 artists, and they're all in one book. And it's really cool because it's like a time skip of everything. So you have a superhero who's immortal. You have a superhero that looks like noir, and then you have another superhero I'm doing the recent one. She's, you know, she's half Latin, and then she's native too. Her name is Taz. She's a big muscular girl. I wish she could be more muscular, but they limited me on the muscle and the detail I could do with her. And she has this imaginary friend. So every time she gets into fights, he comes out, and he's just big and beefy, and it's super violent, super detailed. And so that one's pretty fun. I'm still working on it. Hopefully it'll be done and ready by October. Next one. Still from the same book too, The Lost Pages. So as you can see her, that's Taz. Like I said, when she was really young, her imaginary friend was a big thing in her life. She got older, you know, life happens. She started losing herself too, and she lost her friend. Went through depression, you know, weighed the ups and downs of life. And then one day, when she finally wants to change her life back and get to a healthy mindset, he comes back again. And so he's so big now because now she's thinking better, feeling better, and he feeds off of that. But now she's like a street punk person who's like, that's right, I'm number one now. I'm gonna just start a fight with anybody. And yeah, next one. This is also too, I was very lucky. I got to work with the Smithsonian Museum. So I got to do some of their online works too. They were doing, it was for a Native 360. So it was about history, about treaties. So I got the one on the left. I did that one about 2 years ago. So you could check it on the Smithsonian Museum online on their Native American 360 catalog. And then on the right one, I recently did that one too. That one is for the fur trade of New York. So that was pretty fun too. But yeah, I get to do educational illustrations, and that's really fun too. So it gets diverse in every way. And then the next one. And then this is also one of my other favorite works too. So not only do I do comic books and I do freelance illustration, I also do a lot of other things as well too. My two No Dapple artworks were for charity. I've done plenty of charities before too, and I try to do as much and get as much, make prints, and send out the money to good causes. I do commissions, and all my commissions I try to put 100% into them. I usually get commission, and people take advantage of the detail that I put into them. So they're like, oh yeah, give me a Predator Aztec Mayan style. Okay, that's fine. Do it in your style. Give me a Berserk. I do also artwork for other people's comic books, and on my free time, when I have free time, I also do a lot of woodcuts too. So a lot of paintings and giant things. The 2 woodcuts in the bottom are about 4 to 5 feet. So they're just as big as me. So they're really huge, and there's no room for them. So they're in storage right now. But yeah, so I do a variety of things, and I'm always happy to do, as much art as I can. That's me.
That's so great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
So I have some questions prepared, but now that I've listened to you all talk about all of your amazing work, I know that you all of you work in several different media, right? Film, animation, comics, like all over, right? With different types of materials. Would you talk a little bit about what it's like kind of working across media, and maybe how you decide where an idea is supposed to like kind of live and be?
Well, I'm having a little bit of a pickle with that right now, because I'm currently writing my memoir, which sounds so pretentious as a person in their 30s writing their memoir. What can I possibly say? But I started writing it because I was getting invited to speak at schools for Indigenous kids, like to meet, because I grew up on a res, so a lot of my background is very similar to the kids I speak to, who just need to see somebody who looks like them, that like made it. And a lot of the reason I wanted to write the memoir was because a lot of schools that invite me I can't go to, or that there's a really big cost issue that prevents me from going. And so the memoir could travel on my own, but travel on its own and get further than I could. But the problem with that is when I was trying to write it as just like a Michelle Obama piece, where it's just a book, right? It didn't seem to work because it didn't capture what I wanted to say. So now I'm working with it in a graphic novel format, where it's also, it has its own soundtrack, which is probably to get me in so much trouble with the publisher because it's all U2 songs. So, but I find that like the medium is really prevalent right from the beginning. So for some stuff, it works better as an anthology piece. For others, it works better as a children's book, because like, for example, Carrie Berry Lynn, I always wanted to make that a film. But getting a 4-year-old, like I've worked with kids under 10 and they're so hard to direct because they get so distracted easily. So having a movie depend on a 4-year-old and 7 dogs was going to be impossible to do. So that's why I chose to do it in a children's book. So largely I'm just open to anything. Like I am a writer, but I love the idea of expanding what that covers. Because I thought I was going to grow up to be Stephen King. And like, but I'm like, if I was limited to just being in Stephen King's wheelhouse, that would be so boring.
Yeah, I also kind of deal with similar things. Like I work in animation, and so there's definitely times where like I'm going into my 3rd year, so we are doing group films. So it's about when do I want to show different ideas about something, when do I want to make it a comic, and when do I want to make it like animated, and what are the pros and cons of either one. And especially because it's a group film, for example, it's like I wouldn't want to, for example, tell a personal story there, because it's something that we're working on together, and for something very personal, it's just not the right time for that sort of thing. So I think there's definitely a lot of like decision that goes into like how do I want this to be seen, and what is the best medium for it. The comic that I did, Tinder, about the girl with the fiery hair, is great in a comic, but imagining doing every single time that her hair sets on fire and animating that, because it's all on ones, sounds like a very hard time. So there, you know, I I would want to pick comics, for example.
Well, you know, when I was really young, I would draw, but I didn't really want to be an artist. I wanted to be a archaeologist, which because of Jurassic Park, and then I found it's actually called paleontologist. So I was like, oh, okay, there we go. And I wanted to be a veterinarian until I got older, and I went into high school. Then I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to do comics, right? But I was really getting into the field more of becoming a concept artist because I wanted to work into video games and animation. I thought, oh, this would be really cool. I even took classes for those too. But then as I got older too, I was like, I don't have the patience as much because the same thing too with animation to go literally, what is it, like 60 image for 1 second or something like that. So, or which 30 to 60 images for 1 second, and nobody realizes that. I'm like, yeah, that's how much it takes. But you know, after high school and when it came to college, I wasn't able to go just because I couldn't afford it, like many artists can't. And so I went and I got a regular job. My dad tried to get me in to do anything, every parent just wants you to go do something. But in the back of my head, I still wanted to be an artist. So I did all these wacky jobs. I went and I tried to be, I'm not lying to you, 3 different things: a teacher, a veterinarian, and I became a welder. And I'm not lying to you, I had the mask on, I had my welding stick. I literally took courses for that because I was going to work for the trains where my father would work, and I was going to do all those things. But every career that I was setting myself for, in the back of my head, I always told myself, when I get this job, I can finally save up money to go back to school and do art. When I become a very well-paying veterinarian, a very well-paid teacher, a very well-paid welder, I could save up all my money and go back to school. So it got to a point, it clicked in my head, why am I wasting time? Why am I wasting time for careers that in the end I'm never gonna even want? The money didn't speak to me, the benefits didn't speak to me, my happiness spoke to me. So when it came to that point, I said, no, I'm done pretending to be something I don't want to ever be. So then one day, I came across this school. I said, you know what, I can afford it, and if I can't afford it, I'll find a way to afford it. And then it became comic books, and from that day I never looked back, and here we are today. So it was a great choice. I was really happy I went through the struggle just to become a comic book artist.
That's so amazing. Do you find that your experience with like welding, for example, actually helps you or changes your art in any way?
Well, you see, it's a funny thing. Somebody asked me that too. They're like, oh, well, you could have been a metal artist. You could have done metal. And I was like, you're right. And I could have done carpet, that's why I do some cutouts, and I do work with metal because I know how to use tools. I actually know how to go to, Menards or Home Depot or anywhere and start, sawing things and making art out of it. So that's the plus side of it. But just the thing is just like that. People these days only want to go to these big jobs because they just need a living. They need to survive, and they don't care so much for their happiness as long as they could afford, have food on the table. But it gets to that point where, I was stressing with those jobs and I didn't stress with art. Yeah, I got to break my back to get a paycheck with art, but I wasn't stressing so much about it. I was stressing with these because I had to break my back to, get food on the table. So, it's one or the other, and I rather choose my happiness. So yeah, less stress, you live longer.
Well, that's the same thing that happened to me. I think it's something that comes up with women of color, or especially if you grew up in poverty, that the idea of art is not something that will pay well, and you need to take care of your family. Like, cause my biggest goal when I was a kid is like, I want to grow up so I can make sure that my mom and dad don't need for anything ever again, that they don't have to suffer for anything. So I was going to go be a lawyer. And,
Oh.
and so I got into law school, and when I went to the law school, they were like throwing the rose petals down, and they're like, welcome to our school. Isn't it going to be great? And all I could look forward to that day was like, oh man, I can't wait to leave this school so I can go see you two tonight. And I'm like, that's not a good thing. And so I was like,
but you see, you caught yourself, because if you had gone to, become a lawyer, halfway you would have been like, I just wasted how much grand of money, and now I still want to go see you.
You too, yeah. I'm just like, but it's funny though, because like I am like, I decided like, as long as before I'm 30, I haven't published something or made a film, then I'll go to law school. And now I'm 34 and I'm still doing it. So I'm like, if I'm 40 and I haven't made a feature film yet or published a novel, then I'll go to law school. So yeah, it just like keeps moving down.
That's a good way. You have the cautious part of you. Plan B. I never took, my parents are the plan B. They're the ones who are like, please, we don't want you to live with us. We don't want you to, we have to support you even as you're going through 50. I was like,
I definitely feel that. I originally was going to be a psychologist.
Okay, ladies, we're all on the same point.
And eventually it just became a thing where, I couldn't like drag myself to lectures, and it was just extremely tough. Like both of you as well, art was never seen to be something that you could make money with. So I always was, like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just do it on the side for fun. But it kind of ended up, I got a little taste of it when I did an art convention, Icon, here in Winnipeg. I had my first table, which I had wanted to do since like I was in grade 9. Like I wanted to do it so bad. I knew I wanted to sell my art. And I got a taste of it. I finally did it. I went against my parents' wishes.
That's right.
I just, I basically, I was like, I've always wanted to try this. I'll try it. And then I ended up loving it. And it turned my psychology career upside down. But then I found out that you can make money in animation. Mm-hmm. So animation is kind of my backup plan, where I can kind of take something that, because the storytelling can be used in animation and in comics. So I just thought, well, I can learn how to storytell and learn a lot of the basics about storytelling and like visual storytelling. So technically I'm learning about comics, but also I could have like a job with like a company afterwards, and get like a basic like kind of income, and then maybe do comics on the weekend. Mm-hmm. So that I'd be able to do something that I loved as a job, or at least was a little bit more tolerable, a day job that still involved art, but also being able to move towards comics as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's all it is. It's just, sometimes you might not think that what you know now is actually going to be beneficial for what your main career is. And when I did comics, even then, I still have to develop a world. I still have to create characters. I still have to create a language, monsters, design something. But technically, character design is in comic books. So no matter what, and it just works hand in hand. So mm-hmm. Even if comic books don't work for me later on, but they have, so thank God for that. Anything, I can always send out artwork to video game companies, to animations, and I'm like, look, I'm a concept artist. I can draw your characters for you. I can draw your worlds for you. And so luckily it's worked for all of us. So
fingers crossed. Yeah.
All right. So the next question is, are there particular people or stories that have inspired you as an artist?
Ooh, lots. Well, I mentioned Stephen King. Like Stephen King was the reason I started reading. I saw like this huge book my nursery school teacher had on her desk, and Stephen King's name was on it. I remember seeing his like little bug eyes on the author picture, and I'm like, wow, I want to know what this book says. And so I taught myself to read, not that book, but like the smaller things. And so I've always been inspired by horror is a big one. It's one of my favorite genres, even though I haven't worked in that format yet. I've also been really inspired by The Hobbit, which is my favorite book by J.R.R. Tolkien. And I've also been really inspired by Black media, like particularly Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, stuff like that, because it was the closest thing I had to somebody like me on TV. And so a lot of my favorite things come from Black creators. And so I'm really thankful for those Black creators then and now, because it's the only time I see somebody like me. And like I recently got into Star Trek Discovery, and the fact that Michael Burnham, the lead character, is a Black female, and she has so much of my background. I'm like, this is me on Star Trek finally. And yeah, so Star Trek is a big inspiration, as is Superman. I just love DC Comics.
That's awesome. Yeah. I grew up on I remember I wasn't really allowed to read comics when I was younger. I had to sneak out to the library to read them. And I would read the cheesiest shoujo manga that I could find.
The best.
Yeah. And it gave me kind of a lot of happiness, kind of in a time that wasn't really so great for me. So I find that I'm still very much drawn to romance, as well as there's a lot of LGBT romance available online as well now, which is great. We're coming up more in publishing. There's more and more LGBT stories that are out there. I find my comics a lot online, things like Heartstopper, Check Please. There's also there's stories like Bloom and The Prince and the Dressmaker. Stories like these are really amazing to me. As well as comics that have to do with kind of the community here. Like when I found out that there was a comic about a Métis girl, I got super excited because I was like, what? Someone's actually writing a story about someone who's Métis? That's crazy. And I was so excited. It's called A Girl Called Echo. It's one of the more recent volumes. Really, really great work. Things like the Louis Rhael comic strip biography. I also have been really lucky to have a lot of friends when I entered the comics community that were really supportive, that are also Indigenous, like Autumn CS. She's Libyan and Métis, and then there's also Alice RL, who is Ojibwe, I believe. They do a lot of really great work as well with illustrations and children's literature.
All right. Let's see. There's too many to count, right? And depending on which media. Growing up, though, I was always really drawn to people who were, one, who could create a really good story, and two, who had fantastic detail in their work. That's why my art's very detailed, because I'm a very big detail fanatic. I grew up with Joe Mad. I grew up with Humberto Ramos, some of the biggest people in comic books. Jill Thompson, who's done Scary Godmother. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of her. She's a wonderful woman too, and she was my teacher at one point, and I learned from them. I learned so many things, and going to conventions and them telling me certain secrets, or how to get around this, or how to do that. Great storytellers. One of the biggest things I remember, one, to let you know, I suck at writing. I'm a horrible person when it comes to writing. If you read what I write, I misspell like crazy. I never fix I'm. It's just chicken scratch. I'm just going on crazy. That's why I'm like, that's why I'm not the writer. I'm the artist. But one of the things that I remember Jill Townsend told me was a great comic book is one that doesn't need a lot of words. If you can draw it and visualize it, and you could tell the story with hardly no words, then you're a great comic book artist and a great storyteller, because people now can read and understand what's going through the page. Another big artist too, and I love his work to this day, is Guillermo del Toro. One of the biggest, baddest guys when it comes to monster designs and monster storytelling. And I love the fact he's a very fairy tale like fantasy man. And if you get to hear his conversations, you know, this man has created his world, and it makes it so beautiful and so dark. And that's what really gets to me. I'm like, if you can create a world where you could see and visualize yourself in it, but not know that there's a dark side to it. There's always a dystopia somewhere around there. And like I said, I'm just big on artists and writers, and just people in general who are very positive about their work, who don't see themselves here, but see themselves that they can get up to here, that are always constantly overachievers. I'm just naturally like that too. I don't think, you know, it's good to be comfortable here, but why be here when you could be here, you know? You create something and you're like, well, you know, it'd be cool if we made a plushie for that. Oh, you know, it'd be cool if we made a statue for that. Buttons, you know, ooh, you know, right now it's a paperback. Hopefully in a year or two, it'd be a hardcover. You know, to always see that your work can get better and you can be better is something totally I'm 100% for. I look towards those people. Joe Mad is a wonderful comic book artist, and he went from doing comic books to magazine designs, video game designs, and now he has a video game company. He works in a video game company. Imagine that, going from here to there, right? And people pay hundreds of dollars just to get it. Humberto Ramos, if you hear his story too, he'll tell you when he was a kid, he wanted to do Spider-Man. For years, he wanted to work on Spider-Man. And one day, Marvel told him, what's the one comic book you want to work on? And right away, he said, oh, Spider-Man. Okay, then you're going to be doing Spider-Man. And he got his wish, you know? That's why I said the believers, the constant dreamers, those are the people that I truly think I inspire to look up towards, because they're just wonderful people. You know, that's just who I am. I'm a constant dreamer, and I'm hoping that, you know, I get to that point where it's just never ending. It just keeps going up that ladder. So yeah.
That's so great. Okay. What do you want audiences to think about after they see and engage with your art?
I think for mine, I always just wanted to have that connection with people about, because when you're a goth native girl who is anemic as hell, has an iron deficiency, has no friends, wears Halloween wings to school, and listens to U2 when everyone else is listening to Korn, you're pretty lonely. And so growing up, I always wanted to have people know how I see the world. And the only way I have found that connection is when people see the stuff I've written or seen the stuff I've made, or like, and some of it I just want to make sure that that people know that there are other people like them. Like I did a TEDx talk about how my love of Star Trek and Superman helped me deal with racism when I was a kid. And I thought that this story would only be impactful for girls who grew up like me, Native girls. And after I did that TEDx, I had girls come up to me crying because they said they did not have anyone who ever put their struggle the way I had. And it wasn't just Native girls. It was like these girls from Somalia, this little boy who liked to play with dolls, a woman who told me she was trans, and stuff like that. It was just like, it was so bizarre how much I've connected to people that I thought I would never be able to connect to. And so it's something I'm always worried about, if my stuff is too niche, because I've been told repeatedly that I can't make this, it's too niche. And I was worried that would be the case with my children's book, Carrie Berry Lynn, because I was like, it's about a little Cree girl who grows up, who lives on a res. Who's gonna like that story? And people, little kids from like rich, wealthy families are freaking out because they love Carrie Berry Lynn and they're begging their parents to get them 7 dogs. Or they like the idea of this little girl who lives in the forest with her dogs. And it's just so cool to me. Like, I just love this idea. Like, again, what I want people to take away is the idea of magic in the real world, and how people can be family without being blood family, and how hope is better than despair, and hope can be a person who doesn't look like the most hopeful person. And that's what I really want. I would love for people to connect with my stuff the way they connect to Star Trek, like that after I'm like dead and gone, like people remember the messages I had in my work. So that's something that's the ultimate goal, if I'm going by what Maria was saying, like the dream concept. I dream of being a Gene Roddenberry, where people are taking quotes from my work and using it later. And so it just, like, that's one of my big hopes for my art. It's big hope though.
Nice, yeah. I think with a lot of my works, what I always really want to do is to make people smile and make people happy. I know that's very, I guess, simple, but I guess growing up, stories were kind of a little bit of an escape for me. And so just being able to kind of read a story and feel very good is just kind of what I want to do with a lot of my works. I've had, you know, the pleasure of people coming up to me or sending me a message online as well, you know, saying like, oh, like this story reminds me of me and my girlfriend, and you know, I didn't think that, you know, we'd be able to see this kind of like us in a story online, with as well with Counting Sheep, for example. One of the leads, the romantic lead, is Two-Spirit. And I wanted to include more Two-Spirit representation, and hearing from the Two-Spirit community as well after releasing that comic was really amazing to kind of have that impact where people were really excited to see that representation, because I wanted to see that representation too, because, you know, there's not a lot of Two-Spirit stories out there. And yeah, I just want to give people a good feeling, feel like they're seen, and to finish the story feeling good.
All right. I mean, you know, doing this artwork and going to conventions and stuff, it's pretty much opened my eyes. I never thought my artwork would have a big impact on a lot of people, or people actually would look at my artwork. To me, it's just, you know, every artist will always see their art like here, and people are like, wow, it's so great, and you're like, it's okay. But it's really great. It really is. Having people come to my table and tell me, what pens are you using? Where do you get this? What do you do? How do you get this information? And just telling them, just letting them know, like, there's no secret. Let me help you. You know, when I go to conventions, not only do I want to show my art and seeing what's possible, what happens when you really push yourself, when you take the time to learn a skill and go crazy with it, make it your own style. I want to also be there to help people out too in those situations. I've had people come up to me, like I said, oh, well, how do you do this? I literally have even shown people, like one time a girl came to me just to show me how to draw monster teeth. And I brought out her sketchbook and I said, here, this is how I do it. Let me show you step for step, and you could do it too. Here's the materials I use. You know, I'm not afraid to tell anybody who has questions for me, and I'll give you direct answers to them. But I try to connect with my fans, and it's a variety of fans. Just like Sonya said too, you know, Sonya and Rhael as well, that you want to have stories that connect to certain people, right? And when I started doing comics, I have two sides of me. One is the super crazy detailed side, and one is my really loving side. And you guys didn't get to see pictures of it, but I have a comic called Spot and Dot. And Spot and Dot is about a little girl who's a tomboy who has no friends at all. And she has a friend, her friend is a werewolf. And this werewolf character is like a dad figure to her because she doesn't have a dad either. She doesn't have friends, so he's the only one. And he's trying to leave her. He's trying to escape from her. And then he realizes through time that she has no friends. She's lonely, actually. And then he's like, well, you know what? I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay and take care of this kid and love her for who she is. And, you know, I did that. That what homage was for me and for a lot of tomboys, too, because when I was really young, I was a big tomboy. And you know, when you're the tomboy, now tomboys are cool. So I'm right now, I'm freaked out. I'm like, wait, what? Tomboys are really cool now. But when I was really young, tomboys were like the weird girls, like, ew, you like the Hulk, that's a boy thing, or you know, grabbing bugs or all that. It was disgusting. So I didn't have that much. I knew a lot of people and I was very friendly to a lot of people, but personally, I didn't have a lot of friends. So that was the homage. I did the comic book. And just to have that loving person to never really judge you for who you are and to be you know, that mysterious, weird kid. And then when I do my detail art, that's for a lot of people. Like I said, I do that for very young. I'm glad when a lot of young artists come up to me and they tell me, well, how do you do this? I want to get to your level. Okay, well, here, let me teach you. I'm not afraid to teach you because if you put the work into it, and you know, you take the little advice I give you, you don't need to take the advice, but if you do take it into consideration, you could get to this point. But it's a lot of hard work, you know. And so when people leave my artwork, there's two things I want for them to remember. One, that either connects to them, or two, that it gets embedded in their head, that it's a style that they'll never forget, and they either will mimic it or copy it. And because all artists do that, they all have this thing where they see an artist and they like even a one particular thing and they put it into their artwork, even when they don't even think they're doing it, they naturally do it. So, you know, that's just pretty much it.
Great. So kind of talking about that teaching side that you're talking about, Maria, what advice would you give to new and emerging artists?
That's a good question. Yeah. When I was a kid, Stephen King released a book, his half memoir, half how-to, called On Writing. And the librarian at my local library knew I was a Stephen King fan, so she got that for me and said, like, here, like, I know you want to be a writer when you grow up. And I was like, ran out of the library with that book, and all I could think about on the ride home holding that book was like, he'll tell me what to do. And so I was reading it, and I was really connecting to the fact that like he had a little bit of poverty when he was younger, and like becoming a writer wasn't something that like a lot of people thought was like a viable career for him. Like he was supposed to be a teacher or something. And I got to the part where he was advising what young writers should do to get better at writing, and he's like, all he said was read a lot and write a lot. And I tossed that book in the trash, but then remembered it was the library, so I dug it out. And it's sad now because like I'm 34, and when I go to school classes or go to English classes and the kids ask me like, well, Sonya, how do you be a writer? I find Stephen King's words coming out of my mouth, like read a lot and write a lot. And it's like, it's true though. Like I can't tell you how to be a writer, like, cause people think I'm a terrible writer most of the time, but I write what inspires me and what I want people to know about the world. And I just saw that there was a gap in the world and no one was telling this specific type of story. And so I tell the kids that I meet that you've seen this gap yourself. You know what needs to fill that gap. You can fill that gap. You just have to find out what's missing and tell that story. And talent is something that is imaginary. Talent is something that is worthless unless you put in the work. Because I wrote a 500-page novel when I was 15. It was terrible. It was about me marrying Justin Timberlake. That was what it was about. And but I shared it, and I'm like, one summer I just put in the work and wrote 500 pages. And it's all about putting in the work. It's all about knowing that you are gonna hate the first thing that you do. and not quitting when you hate it. Because it was like something Maria said, you are going to look at your stuff and be like, it's all right. It's nothing compared to what this person's doing. But it's like, you know, the work you put into it. You don't see the work that Guillermo del Toro puts into his stuff. You don't see the work that Stephen King puts into his stuff. And all you see is the finished product. Like, I look at his Guillermo del Toro's movie Pacific Rim, and I'm like, oh my God, I can never do anything like that. And he's probably just looking at it going, man, I did all these mistakes and it's terrible. So it's understanding that everybody my advice for emerging artists and new artists is that everybody you love was where you were right now. Like, they were doubting themselves. They were they were believing people who were saying that nobody wanted to read their stuff or look at it, that you were garbage and you were never going to get anywhere. But spite is the best motivator. So if you have people telling you that you aren't going to do well, just go for it. Like, what's gonna happen? People say no. People say no all the time. And I just want to say too, I knew I wanted to be a writer since I was 3. I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was 16. I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was 20 and trying to go to law school. And once I knew I was right once I turned 30 and was a writer. Like, sometimes you're right when you're a teenager, and sometimes you have to listen to your heart and know that sometimes, even though your parents are saying that it's not a good spot to go to, it's sometimes they'll realize that they want you to be happy more than they want you to have a husband or kids. So just be true to yourself, because your parents ultimately want you to be happy. And sometimes being happy means working at McDonald's for a few weeks while you write something. Like, it's, as long as you're putting in the work, do it, and it's good. Like, that's all I can advise. Do the work. It's going to be hard, but it'll be worth it in the end.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. The putting in the work to it is really important, and just going for it. Like, when I started putting out original content, because I started my kind of comics, making comics on the internet with like fandom comics and things like that, back when I was still studying to be a psychologist. And that was on the side. And then I finally just took the kind of plunge, especially because original art is hard to sell, especially when you're a smaller creator, and just went for it, made my story that I wanted to make, and put it on the internet. And I've been doing it ever since, because it's just like this it's really great feeling of having, you have this like passion, you go for it, you make it, you get it done, and to be able to also see kind of the response and the community around that. Really much, yeah, going for it. Like, even when I went into animation, I did not have the money to learn. I never, like, I was very much a self-taught artist. I never did art in high school because I was told it wouldn't get me anywhere. All these different things. So I very much had to learn on my own how to make a portfolio for animation. I'm one of the only people in my year that learned only through YouTube how to do a layout, how to do character design, shapes, all these different things. And I learned it by spending as much time as I could just like learning online from whatever resources were available. And yeah, so very much putting yourself out there. If you're passionate, kind of like Sonya was saying, like, from a very young age, and it just keeps, coming up. I had a very similar experience. I was always writing stories since I was very young, and I always knew what I wanted. And then when I finally went for it and I did my first art table, it was like, oh, this is what I've been missing this whole time. It feels like my life is complete. So go for it. Like, there's no harm even in trying, because then if you try, at least you will know if you like it or not. So.
I mean, going what both of them are saying, definitely my advice, and I've told this to many people, take the risk. Truly be a risk taker. I know some people are cautious and you want to first put your foot into the water. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but sometimes taking the leap of faith gets you a lot of places and places you never thought you would be in. I mean, when I did the same thing too, when I did my convention, I went to a really big convention. Most people start off with a tiny convention. And I said, screw it. Let's just go big, go bigger, go home. If I sell nothing, I sell nothing. But then I sold something. And then I sold another thing and another thing. And right away that was, oh man, I'm doing the right thing. So my advice for emerging, I have tons of advice, just to let you know. If you ever want to contact me for, supplies or whatever, I will give you all the advice you want. I'm here to help you out as much. But one thing that I will tell you is take the risk. Second thing I would say, the industry is small. If you get into the world of art, comic books, animation, the industry is actually small. And, there's a lot of good people who are willing to help you out. But because everybody's really close to, be very cautious. Don't be envious of other people's artwork. Don't backlash or say hateful things about other people's artwork. Because remember, you might not like that one artist, but they're friends with you as well. And then that's job opportunities, because you say you didn't like that artist, but that's their best friend. And how dare you say, things about their best friend? Well, I'm not going to give you the job. And it happens a lot, So, be mindful of what you say. Keep it to yourself. You don't like the person, then leave it be. You just don't like the person. Simple as that. That's also in life too, be 100% positive, and be patient. That's one of the things too. Nothing's going to come to you right away. Look how long it took me to get to where I am now. Years too. And I'm not even perfected my art style. It's going to be another couple more years. And even that, I won't think it's perfect. So keep taking your time. Don't feel envious. Don't feel that your art is not that great. Trust me, it is. It just takes time. I bet you if you take a picture that you had 5 years ago and you put it for your recent one, you're going to see so many changes because you constantly kept working on it. And I really, really do mean when I say keep working on your art. There's a difference between the person who only works 30 minutes a week to the person who does 30 minutes each day. And you will see the difference to it, because like everybody says, you need to put the work into it. You want to be the best, you want to be on top, well then you gotta want that. Then you're gonna have to really, really desire it. And and don't worry about if you feel nobody's gonna like your artwork. Trust me, there's a fan base for everything. So if you do nothing but cat artwork, there's a big group of people who just love cat artwork. If you do nothing but pizza, those fanatics who love pizza are all going to be right there. If you do fanfics, there's a lot of people who have fanfics, there too. But there's always a group for that. What I highly recommend, and another big advice too, if you're going to do fan art you like. Don't do fan art that's popular, like, oh, this year, Steven Universe. I'm not a fan of Steven Universe, but I'm going to draw Steven Universe anyway. No. Be passionate about that fan art, because the people could see the passion that's in your art. So if you, like I said, you want to do fan art, that's fine, but do the one you like and make it yourself. Put your full 100% into it. And that's everything with the art. Like I said, I have a lot more, but I know time is limited and I'm not going to take up everybody's time.
Well, related to what Maria was saying, passion is important, because I know me and Rhael are kind of shyer, but and I was worried that as a filmmaker, I would not have to, I would have to be schmoozy and like be aloof and like be like a total, like, for lack of a better word, asshole at networking events. But I just was being myself, and all the good opportunities came just from being myself and being a nerd and passionate about the stuff I love. Like, and it does take time, because people think I just went to San Diego Comic-Con one day and like that was it. And I'm like, no, it took 3 years to get there. And like, I still have goals. Like, I haven't never played a Toronto International Film Festival. I would love to. They hate me, but maybe one day they won't. But like, it's all about remaining positive, because people will remember that. Like, I have I don't want to call, I won't name check people, but I have like a lot of high profile friends who help me and like mention my name to people when they say, like, when they get asked for projects, they're like, well, I don't feel comfortable doing this, but my friend Sonya might be perfect. And like, it's just like, the best thing to do is to go up to people as fans, not as somebody who can potentially help you in your career, if that makes sense. Like, don't go up to somebody like G. Willow Wilson and be like, could you get me a job at Marvel? She and I became friends on Twitter, and like, I met her at San Diego Comic-Con. Like, it's stuff like that. Like, come up to people with honesty, not with like a hidden objective. Because like, it's like what Marie was saying, like, if you come up to us as fans, like, it's cool. Like, I'm never gonna hate on somebody who said, like, I love your movie and I love what you wrote. Like, if you come up to me and say, like, oh yeah, like, I could write this better, then yeah, we're gonna have beef. But like, it's just remaining positive and being forthright. That's the big thing. So just be yourself is a big one.
100%. You know, I've had. Oh wait, you go first.
No.
No, I mean, I'm not lying to you. I've had artists where, you know, the after parties are great, and then I've had artists where they tell me some really like nasty things, and I'm just like, I don't know if this is how you want to start the friendship already. But and literally in conventions, I'm just literally sitting across from them, and I'm just looking at them like, yeah, you're that person who told me that. And guess what? If somebody ever tells me a job, you definitely know I'm gonna give it to the people I actually like first. Before you. And that's just how it is. It's common courtesy. You treat everybody with respect, and you're gonna be given that respect, you know. That's what I'm just saying.
I think that's all really good advice.
Yeah.
Rhael, did you have anything else to add?
No, I pretty much agree, and like with everything that's said. I have very similar experiences. Just, you know, approach everything, you know, how you would kind of approaching as a fan or a friend, and yeah. Just be yourself. Yeah, definitely. Because you're right, Sonya, I am a very shy person. I very much kind of just sit there and listen. So I always feel like, especially I'm very much an introvert, so, you know, socialization sometimes is very hard. And I'll definitely push myself to go and do it. And I do enjoy it as well. But I always know where my limits are as well. So, you know, saying like, oh, I know that there's, you know, this happening in this event, but I really need to just step away. Yeah.
Great. So is there a dream project that you would like to create or work on?
Mine is, I would love to write a Green Lantern comic. I have an idea for it. It's about a Cree woman named Ashitako Nipi, which means green leaf, becoming the first Green Lantern of Earth. In the 1600s, and I've had it written forever, and I keep, like, every time I see Jeff Johns at like at Comic-Con, I'm like throwing it at him. But I that would be one project I would love to do. I'd also love to do a Superman film. Like, that is my dream, my goal. Like, I would love to just write for that character, because he has been my hero since I was a child, and I would just love to work in that universe and have stuff I've written come out of his mouth. And like, I don't know, just like, it's my biggest dream right now. Like, that would be, and make him the Superman he needs to be. So, because I can't believe we've been able to make Captain America cool, but we haven't been able to make Superman cool. And I'm like, damn it. Those are my two.
Nice. Yeah, for me, I think very much like something I would love to do, because I've spent, you know, a lot of time making short comics, but I really one day would really like to make like a full-length like romance comic, so that it has, you know, a bit more of a complicated plot, because it's not a short story, and, you know, we can go into more about character development and all that sort of stuff. Like, I would really love to make like a longer book, and as well, something that I've been coming more into recently, is about talking about my identity as a Métis person, which, you know, for a long time was something I was really uncomfortable about and not sure about, and I didn't really know who I was. And as I've been learning more about who I am and, you know, my family's history, I've been feeling more and more comfortable talking about my experience. You know, the only book I know is A Girl Called Echo that has, you know, a Métis lead. And I'd love to make more content, either a book or like a series of shorter comics about the experience about being Métis and my experience with it as well.
All right. I mean, projects I would like to get on or finish mine. My own personal work. It's so hard, especially when you keep getting hired to do commissions or other people's work, and you're like, yeah, but I was working on mine. No. You got to pay your bills off first. I'm like, damn. I mean, if I was given the opportunity, if, you know, if DC ever said you want to work on something, definitely I'd say global, 100%. I'm like, give me that, you know, or give me a Batman with Killer Croc, because I'm like, oh, I could do that spreadsheet really nice, or a Marvel comic with the Hulk, you know, anything with muscles and savagery. I'm totally down with that. I mean, my dream, another part of my dream, I would love to do, and it doesn't even need to be successful, just a little video game company, and they say, hey, we need some concept art. I'm 100% on that boat. I'm like, you know, give it to me. And even if they tell me, oh no, the game's been canceled, I at least could say I did concept art for the video game that never happened. But yeah, if it were to be anything besides those fantasies or maybe one day realities, another thing would be to finish my projects, my spot and dot that I really want to get to everybody's hands, especially to all the little kids out there or all the tomboy girls, you know, who are just like, yeah, that's right, we were cool. Or another comic book that I'm working on too, which is called Crimson Jaw, which is a Norse mythology one, which deals with lots of monsters and blood and gore, and that's a big project too. But those take time, and I'm not in a rush for those as well too. But yeah, that's I hope I can get them.
Well, hopefully one day I'll say you heard it here first. Now they're all doing all their
free advertisement. That's right.
So I know that you all have worked in collaborations in lots of different ways, and I'm wondering what you've learned from your collaborations with other people.
That the projects only get better, because I was under this assumption when I was young that everybody did things in a vacuum. Like every creative is the sole person who does everything, and that's not true. Like the creative team I work with right now is like are some of the best people that I've ever met, and they flesh out my ideas and make them better. And I love that. Like, because the original version of Crash Site is not the filmed version that we went with, because it works better the way it is. And yeah, like working with people is such a valuable and treasured thing for me, just because I love what people bring to make the world that I created better. And so it just makes me feel good, because I would never want to be one of those like lone wolf geniuses, because that seems so boring. Like I want to be able to create something that that is like a quilt. The quilt gets better when other people are on it. So that's my thing.
Definitely, I agree about the you know, working with other artists and how it definitely makes you stronger as an artist as well. You know, especially coming from an animation background in school, where we are just like bouncing ideas off each other all the time, and when the teacher's not there, we're all helping each other with critiquing our work, and it makes us better artists. You know, I that's something I really love about that, and it's less fun working alone. I definitely it's definitely different. I for a long time, when I started working more with people on projects, I always approached it as I always thought, oh, I'm so inexperienced, like I hope I don't let them down. You know, I always very much felt like I, didn't have the skills or whatever for whatever collaboration I was going to be doing. And I always approached it with kind of a bit more of a, like, I didn't really think so positively about my skills. But then I would see that the people that I was working with were also, like thinking about their own skills as well. Like I worked on a project with, it was with Queer Webcomic Online, and they're a publisher, and I did work with them over December, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my first time really like making a finished comic for a publisher. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. How did I get picked? And like, then I started talking to the author, and he was saying, like, oh, like, this is my first time making a script for somebody else. Does it work okay? And we were both like working off of each other to like, to be able to kind of like make the best experience for everybody who's reading. So it was kind of understanding as I got more into collaboration projects that like, you're there for a reason, and everybody also around you is learning as well. We're all you're learning and getting better. So no one is necessarily, this like God level,
There's pros to cons with collaborating with people. I love it and I hate it too. And it's just really depending on who you're working with. That's pretty much just it. When I usually collaborate, there's two versions of it. Either when they're doing a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo and they need fan art, they need pinups. My job is to make sure that I give you the most coolest artwork for your book so that it could sell a lot more, right? So that's just, and I usually just make sure it's super detailed. I really want to support you, and I really want, and I'll go and I'll say to people, go get this book. There's only 10 days left. So that's with one collaboration. Another collaboration too is I've done artwork for movies. I've done little posters. I have one of my buddies who's in California was at a convention, and he needed 2 posters for his new upcoming little film that he did. It was about basketball, and the other one was about Taekwondo. And I was like, oh yeah, I could do, they had the actors, and I saw them with my posters, and they're all signing it. And I was just like, that's the best I could do to help you out. The little that helps. But like I said, I've had the ups and downs. I love collaborating. Comic books are technically collaborating unless you're doing everything, because are you the penciler? Are you the inker? Are you the colorist? Are you, the letterer? That's the collaboration. You're all working as a team, because once you're done, you send it to the next person, right? Unless you're doing it for yourself. I find that when you have a team, it's so much easier. 10 times easier, because you take a lot of weight off your shoulders, because you're not stressing out like, oh my goodness, I just drew 80 pages and I gotta ink 80 pages, and then you want me to color them, and that's just way too much, especially in a time when everything is just on time management. It's so great when you be like, here's 80 pages, good luck, and send it to the next person. But like I said, a lot of times too, it's just who you're working with. I've had wonderful people who worked with me in the beginning. They like that I'm really fast. They like the fact I'm really friendly. And then they get to learn my dark, my bad sides, which are, I rarely, like my messages, you got to send me 10 of them because I'm working so much. And I just don't look, I have a really bad habit of just looking at my phone and going, oh, that's nice. And just going back to drawing. And then they're like, did you get my message? I was like, you sent me a message? Yeah, I sent you 5 of them. Oops. But like I said, you learn from that. You learn either the person that's working with you needs certain things, like they need you to have your time together. They need you to talk to them a lot. They need to see, here and there. And then they learn from you. What do you as an artist want from them? So like a good example is that I worked with the people with the Smithsonian and the other native realities and stuff. They already know, all they got to do is send me the work. I got it. That's it. And they'll message me within 2 weeks or a month. And I'm like, yeah, did you finish it? I'm like, yes, here it is. It's done. I did it. They'll not message me rarely, right? They just do a quick message like, oh, did you get it done? Yes, I did. Are you working on it? Yes. Okay, we're great. But then you get some people who are just like, oh, did you get it done? oh, can I see? Oh, let's change this. Oh, I don't want that. Oh, and it goes on and on and on. And I'm not a big fan of micromanaging. I actually have an authority complex. So the moment somebody starts telling me I need to see this right now, that's when I go, I'm gonna just mute my phone, which has gotten me in a lot of trouble. But then that's when I have to sit down and talk to the person. Look, this is how I work. The best way to do it is if you message me only a few times out of the week, 100% I'll message you. If you message me every hour, I am not gonna message you back. So you have to, like I said, with the writer, with the editor, you have to learn, how you work, how they work. They might not like it, you might like it, but that's why you have to come together and talk ahead of time of how you work and how they work. Because if you just go blindly, then there's just a lot of like anger and upsetness, and that's why I mute a lot of things. It's my bad habit.
All right,
Okay.
well, we're going to turn a little bit more to pop culture.
All
So
right.
I'm wondering, so you all work in comics or love comics in some ways. So I want to know, what are some of your favorite comics, characters, or franchises?
I'm obsessed with Superman. Like, I love Superman. He was my first character. I also really love Batman, but I didn't really get into Batman as a comic book until I was older. I recently added that comic book, Batman Damned #1, which is where you see him naked. So I'm like, I can't wait to be a grandma and showing that off as the jewel of my collection when I'm 80. So, well, jewel, but yeah, and I just love, I love superhero comics. They are my favorite stuff just because I love that idea of anyone can be a hero. And it just, like, I love heroism. Like, hope in a dark time is some of my favorite stuff. And I also love Spider-Man. One of my favorite characters right now is Miss Marvel, Camilla Khan. Love her. Not just because I'm friends with G Willow, but I just love how comic books are changing to include less lily white boys as heroes. Like, there are women taking up the helm, and like there are women behind the mask and writing. So it's really cool time right now. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree about how this is a really cool time for writing. I'm also very much a Spider-Man fan. I haven't dipped a lot of my feet into a lot of the superhero comics, but Spider-Man is always one that I really enjoy. A lot of the comics that I read are all online. As time goes on, we're getting more LGBT like romance stories that aren't just about, for example, a sad coming out story. Because for a while, with a lot of LGBT media, it was just, about coming out, and we needed that for a time. But also, I want to read a happy story once in a while. I just really wanted to see, the stories that I'd always seen in media with a lot of like straight couples, but to see that, with an LGBT couple, like, let's put gay werewolves in the subway. Why not? Let's
I will read that.
let's take this like cliche that's been done a million times, but like make it very, very gay, and just have a lot of fun with it. So I mean, kind of some of the comics that I was mentioning earlier, comics like Check Please that started online, it's by Ngozi, was really great. I've been following it for years. There's Heartstopper, I really enjoy it as well. There's a couple different books, like Bloom, which came out a year or two back, The Witch Boy, Nimona, the Prince and the Dressmaker. All these sorts of books are really a lot of source of inspiration for me in my works as well.
I gotta check a couple of those stories you got there. I mean, same thing too. I grew up with comics, but I wasn't like a big fanatic of it. I was more of the person who was really into the comics that were different and weird and, didn't have a big fan base. I mean, let's not get wrong. DC and Marvel are really great, and they have some wonderful comics. So does Dark Horse and all the other big companies too. But I feel that because they're so popularized, you don't get to see the really cool indie comics, the little small ones that have a unique story in them. Um, you know, like, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of She-Hulk. I grew up with She-Hulk. That was my thing. That's my girl right there. You know, and I'm really glad that how female superheroes are now. They're actually being normal. They're regular. They're not crazy, you know, big butts and boobs. They're realistic, you know. They're badasses in every way. They're kids, you know, they're people of color, you know, they're POCs. And that's the great thing about them. They're gay, and that's just great. We could connect with them too, in so many ways. You know, hopefully there's a short person there. I'd love it if they had a short superhero. My height, please. With super long hair. But you know, and that's the thing. So I grew up with comics. I grew up with manga a lot. I grew up with a lot of Chinese comics. I grew up with Korean manhwa. So my just the different genres I grew up with, and there's so much, and that's the beauty about comics. I wish people didn't just stay with comics. I wish they opened their eyes to the world around them, because it's so awesome what other people have. And I mean, like I said, I'm a big person on franchises, video games, movies, you name it. I love the horror. I love the serial killer mysteries. I love the sci-fi. I just love it all. I really do. There's very little where I don't like, because it just puts you in another world. And when people do it really well, it makes you happy. And I am a sucker deep down for love comics and romance. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am like the littlest woman in there. When I hear anybody read lore, oh man, Lore Olympics. Oh God, when that comes out, I'm just squealing like a girl. I'm like, after I drew like this gruesome, like, you know, hardcover blood and everything, and I'm like, ooh, let me see if Hades is gonna be. I love those things. Those are my favorite. So yeah, I mean, it's all good. It really is good when you don't blind yourself to just being in one area. When you open your eyes to the world and the possibilities, it's all good, really.
Yeah, related to what you said, Maria, I used to think manga was like I thought it was all hentai. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be those people that are like holding the pillow with the sexy.
You told me that.
And I don't like, and I was like, I don't want to read manga. I'm not a pervert. And my friend finally turned me on to stuff like Junji Ito, who's like a horror one, and I was like, this is amazing. And then I read JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I'm like, this is amazing. And so once I learned to get past the idea of my prejudices regarding a certain thing that I didn't really know that much about, I found stuff that I really liked that wasn't really being done in North America. And even though I think I'm still not going to be a card carrying, like, what do they call them, weebs? I will be that. But I'm not going to go to Japan and try and be that person, you know, like doing that, but I'm like 7 feet tall. But it's good to branch out a little bit. Like, you can have your favorites, right? But like, that shouldn't prevent you from going further and finding cool stuff in other places too.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm 100% for that. I tell everybody too, like my buddy that I'm working with a comic book, I'm getting him slowly into manga. And the reason I told him is because he's a beginner comic book writer. And I told him, you need to learn from other people, because Westerners do it different from what people in Asia do, from what people in Australia do. Everybody has a different, you know, from Africa, everybody has a different way of writing, a different way of visualizing, and a different art style too. Like when you look at my artwork, it's different. It has different styles from like different cultures, and you know, and it's all mixed together. And that the reason why, it's because I saw the awesomeness of everything and I put them all together because I enjoyed them all. And I recommend people, you know, go read those things, go watch those things, you know, watch a movie with subtitles. You don't like reading, you know, watch a movie and you'll be amazed at all those South Korean horror movies that are out there. oh, mwah, delicious, so beautiful. You know, the Japanese ones are great too. And then right now, you know, a lot of Latin countries are doing really cool horror action movies too. You know, and Bollywood has the greatest out of nowhere, you know, comedy and fantasy movies out of there. Yeah, but open your eyes to the world around you, and you'll be surprised what it can offer.
Great. Okay. Have you seen changes in the representations of Indigenous culture and people in popular culture? And where have you experienced representations that you enjoy? And where has popular culture failed?
For changes, yes, but I find that it's lacking in that it tends to focus on Indigenous men. Like some of my favorite representation of an Indigenous person in the last few years was a person named Davis on the TV show Corner Gas, because Davis is this big, scary-looking cop dude, and he's played by Lauren Cardinal. And in any other show, he would be like the gangster and the mean guy, and he'd be pushing people around. But on Corner Gas, he's this effeminate, possibly gay, a really sensitive man who loves comic books, and he's a huge nerd. He gets into a fight with like an argument with a local over who was the best Star Wars apprentice, Darth Maul or Darth Vader, and stuff like that. He is one of my favorite characters. But I would love to see a character like that who is an Indigenous woman. Like recently, the film Blood Quantum came out, and that still had a lot of really good representation of Native people. But again, it all focused on men, and I think that that's some of the reasons why most of my films focus on women and girls, because I've always wanted to see those roles, and I've always wanted to see like a 17-year-old Cree girl like kill a zombie, or I've always wanted to see a 16-year-old reluctant superhero. Like it's still like it's going in leaps and bounds, the kind of thing, but it's still like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I love what despite how the culture there, I love the films coming out of Australia about Indigenous people. My particular favorite was a movie called The Sapphires, which was amazing. It was about this Aborigine girl group who go to Vietnam during the Vietnam War to sing for them, and it's like a really, really good movie. And the racism they face is just the undercurrent of their lives, not the main focus, like it is in real life. Like the racism I face as an Indigenous person is always an undercurrent. It's never outright. It's not what I deal with on a day-to-day basis, but it's always there. And so I suggest you watch that. It's a really, really good movie.
Oh, yeah, it sounds like a really good movie. I'll have to check it out. I find, yeah, kind of going off of what Sonya was saying, you know, that there's a lot of lack of representation for specific groups within kind of our culture. So like the women and also Two-Spirit, for example, are needing more representation. And I think a huge part of that is also getting more people into the industry and, you know, creating these opportunities and getting more people involved, definitely, so that we can see these stories being told from the people themselves. Because when you're not a part of a group and you try to tell a story from somebody else, it does not go over well at all. You know, definitely for me, hearing stories like A Girl Called Echo, you know, it was just like really amazing to be able to see that representation, and to have, for people to be able to have that representation is super important. Like if we had a Métis story that was about somebody who's Two-Spirit, you know, that's crazy. But I mean, it's not crazy, but like just the fact that it doesn't exist yet, and you know, like it's something that does need to exist. Everybody needs to be able to see themselves in the media. It's super, super important. So we need to get more people into these jobs and telling their stories so that everyone can be seen.
Yeah, 100%. I do agree with both of you. I mean, how the media portrays us now is that one, they're slowly making us more badass. I mean, they are giving us our cool costumes, or, they're giving us these badass stories, we're becoming these cool superheroes. The only thing about that, though, is that it's still written by white men, which is no, granted, I believe Red Wolf was one of the very few Marvel ones that was done by an Indigenous man. So that we're improving, Second, we're getting more women too. I've seen a couple of comics, but they always make them with the really bad, violent story where they were either beaten or raped, or, something happened and they want revenge, and don't get me wrong, I'm all good for a revenge story, but it's still the let's beat them up first and make their life like a torture in a sense for them to get to that point. Where can it I mean, to this day, I still think one of my favorite movies is Whale Rider. I don't know if anybody saw that. Really, right? I really love that movie. It's about the little girl who wants to be a part of this tradition that only men can be a part of, and she's fighting with her grandfather, and she's just telling him, like, I want to do that too, though. I want to be a part of that. And he's like, no, this is tradition. Women can't do that. You guys do something else. And it takes you through a wonderful journey. I saw that as a kid. I was like, oh man, she reminds me of me, because I would have totally done that as a kid. I'm like, no, I want to do what the boys are doing. And I mean, that's just how I see it. I still think we die a lot in movies or comics. We're like the first characters to go. We have these cool stories, these cool backgrounds, and then they're like, okay, we are like that. That's pretty much it. Like I said, I think slowly too, people are allowing more Indigenous people to write stories. And they're still putting really cool characters, but they either A, they kill them off, B, it's written by a white person. I don't want to be mean or anything, but it's just like, represent, get closer to that feeling, that suffering. You want a good story, get somebody who you connect to their ancestors. Mm-hmm. And I just want a really badass girl. The only cool badass native girl I saw was from Doctor Strange. I did a commission of her, and she's just really cool. Like, she's a sorceress, and she rides a flaming horse, and she's just really badass. She just looks, her colors are wonderful, her details really beautiful too, but she's a straight up killer. Like, if she doesn't like somebody, she'll go around and like that. And I thought, like, that's really cool. Why can't we have more girls like that? More girls are just like, who look you straight in the eye. I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna kill you because I'm just a badass that way, down with the revolution. But we don't have a lot of those, and slowly I hope we do. I know when I did the Lost Stories, when I did Taz, and they told me, I was like, no, let's make her native, let's make her a badass, let's make her like a big bodybuilder. She can kick ass, she's fun to be around. Let's not give her this crazy sad story. But I can only go so far until the writer tells me, like, no, this is my book. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. What fandom communities do you enjoy in popular culture?
I prefer. I'm a big fan of the TV show Hannibal. I like the Hannibal fandom because that's the first fandom I've found that mixed horror and romance, which I really enjoy. They can get a little weird. So the same thing with Star Trek fandom. I love Star Trek fandom as long as I don't go into the Star Trek Discovery doesn't count anymore parts of the fandom. I really love Pacific Rim fandom. Is one of my favorite ones. All the fandoms I like are like slowly dying because the content's not there anymore. But my first fandom was probably for the band U2. Like, actually, U2 used to have a fan fiction board on their message board way back in the early 2000s. It was bizarre, but that was the first place I ever posted an original story and got feedback from people who really liked it. It was about this vampire who was changed in the 70s. And it's about her like coming of age while she follows U2 on tour. So it was really fun to write. I think I wish I had saved it, but I kind of want to bring it back. But I love fandom communities. I think the only way I'll ever feel famous is if I go to Comic-Con and see somebody cosplaying a character I made. Like, I think that's when I'll know, like, I've made it. So I cannot wait to have people writing fanfic about my stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. I haven't been a part of fandom communities for a little while. I mean, I'm especially because I've been very busy with school, and then when I'm not in school, I've been doing comic work. So finding that time to fit in the time to be in a fandom community and involve myself in the content is sometimes hard. But things like, I guess, She-Ra, which came out. I do like She-Ra. Oh gosh. I mean, I listened to Taz for a little while, which is a podcast. I'm very much, I think the majority of the media that I consume is all like web comics and webtoons. So but I don't really involve myself a lot in the fandom. I guess there's also Legend of Zelda. I do like Legend of Zelda. And I've tried to spend a little bit of time away from fandom, especially because I got involved in the Voltron fandom a few years back, and that's a whole mess that I don't want to talk about. But since then, I've kind of not really been too involved in fandoms.
Same here. I mean, I'm a big fan, like I said, of a lot of things. So I could do, there's so many I could do, from video games, movies, comics. I'm a little fan here. I'm not overly obsessed like some fans are, who are hardcore and can tell you the blood type and the birthday, and I'm just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And like, look, I ship these people and that person. I'm like, oh my God. And then they have like their own little off stories too. And I'm like, I'm done. I just came here to just look at the characters. But I mean, the basic ones I have are like Jurassic Park. I'm a big fan of that fandom. Dodorihidoro, which is that new anime. Oh man, I was a big fan of them in high school, and even Parasite too. So if any of you guys watched the manga or anime of Parasite, I knew those all the way in high school, even before. So I was a big fan of them, and then when they became animes recently, I was just like, I knew them first. But oh yeah, those just little things, Digimon, Pokemon. Like I said, I enjoy the little things. I'm just not hardcore of it. If anything, I'm usually in the fandom pages seeing the arguments go on, because I think it's hilarious seeing what people will fight for. Like, no, it happened, or their theories, their conspiracy theories. Oh, those are beautiful too. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I enjoy my fandoms. I'm just not a hardcore, like, yeah, 100%.
All right, so we'll be wrapping up, but I want to make sure that all of the viewers for this video cast can connect with you and follow your work. So where can they follow you? Where can they find you?
Well, you can find me mostly on Twitter. Honey_child is my Twitter handle that I mostly go by. I do have a professional Twitter, Sonya Ballantyne, because I didn't want people to Google my name and when I worked at a government day job and find my my more illicit Twitter, which is where I'm like, man, I need those two scientists in Pacific Rim to kiss. So like, I didn't want people to have that stuff there. But yeah, mostly on Twitter, I am like, it's a good combination of Indigenous activism and just being silly. And so I do a lot of like tweeting there often. I do have an Instagram, Saranic Nanu. If you look up the Green Lantern Saranic, look up her name. That's my Instagram handle. And I mostly just post pictures of dogs I see. So, and you can also rent my movies through the Winnipeg Film Group Distribution Center. You can also buy Pros and Comic-Cons and Women Love Wrestling on Amazon or at your local bookseller. Women Love Wrestling, again, is all the proceeds go towards women's charities like RAIN in the US. And so, yeah, like it's a really good cause. So yeah, like have a look at that.
For me, I'm pretty sure if you look up my name online, Rhael McGregor, you should be able to find my work. But I go under the alias of Ray's Drawings. It's drawings, but with an L in the middle. I don't know why. I made it up in, high school, and it's just stayed that way since. But I'm available on Instagram and on Twitter. Most of the time, those are kind of my primary platforms. I am still technically on Tumblr, but it's pretty dead. And I also have a Tapastic where I have most of my comics up for free, as well as my new webtoon account. So,
Right. And you can find me at Twitter, Instagram, and you can also find me on Facebook too. My Twitter and my Instagram are at the Wolf Maria. I try to get Maria the Wolf, but I had to try to fight somebody for that name, and they didn't want to give it to me. So you could also find me on Facebook. I am my title for that one is Art of the Wolf, or Art of Maria the Wolf, and I used to have a Tumblr. It's dead. I used to have a DeviantArt. That one's dead too. And I used to have a bunch of them, but yeah, those don't do so well. So just find me in those three, and yeah, I'd love to answer any of your questions or commissions or for hire.
Oh, and I forgot to mention on Facebook, I'm Codebreaker Films. So sorry about that. Like I just forgot about it. My business will kick me in the butt for not mentioning it. Yeah, so you can find all our new projects there too.
Great. Well, thank you so much to all of you. Thank you, Sonya. Thank you, Rhael. Thank you, Maria. This has been such a great conversation, and thank you to SoulCon for hosting this video cast. And I look forward to seeing all of the amazing things that you will continue to do, and I am sure that our viewers will be really excited to follow you and root for you and root for those huge projects that you want.
I hope I get to see you guys when this is all over. And actually give you a hug.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. You've been
Untitled.